is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
We started off the season with one of racing's longer, larger, and faster circuits. But now we switch gears and plop the Radical on a track more well known for hot lapping than it is racing. Tsukuba Circuit is one of iRacing's newest additions, though it's been known in the sim racing community for decades now. And while familiarity might help some around this tight, twisty track, it's also been known to breed contempt. Will tempers flare, or will joy overcome all? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 2 of the Precision Racing League's American iRacing Thursday series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Taylor Burris. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Taylor, like I said, a lot of our fans have probably heard of this track if they're in the sim racing scene, but for the average Joe, why don't you tell us a little bit about Tsukuba?
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tsukuba. This 1.2 mile or 2.0 kilometer 12-turn circuit is one of the most fan-favorite tracks in all of sim racing. To give you the fan to see what it is like to take on this 2,000 kilometer full layout, let us go on board with the GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Stefan Schlacker in the GSRC Radical, so let's do a lap around Tsukuba. Down into turn 1, this is definitely going to be one of the more popular passing spots, but even then, it'll be severely difficult to execute. Like most hairpins, you'll want to square off the exit, and then we're straightening out the track on our way to 5. The weaving circuit makes it tough to overtake someone into here, but it can be doable. Off the corner, you've immediately got to swing across the track to take it through 7. It looks simple on the surface, but it's deceptively hard to nail. You're now taken right into 8 and 9, which are easily flat out in the Radical, but you'll have to hold to the left for 10. This corner is much tighter on entry than on exit, meaning you can get the power down somewhat earlier than you'd expect. That'll be very important because the backstretch is the longest acceleration zone of the track, but it doesn't lead into a corner that's great for overtaking. 12 is long and fast with a decreasing radius. Most likely it'll catch a few people out, but it does have some AstroTurf on the runoff that allows you to be liberal with the track boundaries. But hopefully you've now finished a lap around Tsukuba. You can see by how quickly the lap went by in our lap guide that there's going to be a lot of them ticked off here in this 45-minute race. But by the way, we just want to give a quick mention and a big thank you to HFD1 Motorsports. They're one of the teams that are running here today, and they have sponsored this season to make sure that it gets broadcasted. So a big thank you to them for helping bring GSRC back I should say, for the first season of coverage that we've had for the Thursday series here in the PRL. And of course, let's take a glance at the points and how those are sitting now that we've got one round done. We've got Curlin Andrew up at the top since he won last race, and only 1 point separate he and Duval, since Duval took the pole at that first round. Now, Kenny has been looking strong here today, so he might be able to reverse things on Curlin. We'll see how it all plays out. Kip Stevens with a nice podium there, with Matthew Gunderson and Mark Fowle going to round out our top 5 at that first race of the season. What about the team points, Taylor? What are we looking at there?
We're looking at the team's points championship after just one round and a couple of weeks of vacation. It is going to be the HFD1 Motorsports with Duvall and Huffstetler currently leading on with a 55 points. 4 points behind is the Banana Split Racing Group with Andrews and Duchesne, followed by Blown Tranny Racing with Gunderson and Gore. The Cash for Crash team with McLaughlin as well as Wildridge will leave behind in 11 points, with the Fraley's Auto Body with File and Luke rounding out your top 5, 16 points back.
And of course, if you've never watched this series before, we want to give you a quick rundown of the race details. I mentioned it's a 45-minute race. As you can see, we are in round 2. They are racing in that Radical SR8. Now, the setups are open on these cars, unlike the official series where they have fixed setups here in Radical. But they have also limited the fuel compared to what they can run in real life. So you can expect one pit stop for fuel during this race. They have an incident cap at about 24. The drivers could potentially rack that up around here. It is a very tight track, but we're expecting other problems to take drivers out because they have no spare car in this series. So if you break it, you bought it. And with all the traffic that's being crammed in this tiny little track, we expect a little bit of damage to happen out there today. And speaking of that damage, Taylor, what are the keys going to be to being able to come away without that damage and take the top spot on the podium?
Well, one of the major incidents that you're going to have to watch out for is watching out for these hairpins. As we see right now on screen, you see Curlin Andrews going through the first of 3 major hairpins that this track has to offer. Drivers are going to have to be so careful with corner exit because these cars cannot really handle low speeds that well. And remember last time out at Spa, we saw them having very much difficulty going through the bus stop chicane. So these drivers are going to have to make sure they are careful with the throttle input in order to get through these tight hairpins as quickly and as safely as possible. Another thing is the curbings here. Curbings might seem like it'd be an okay thing for this track, but too much of it can send this car around, especially off the corner exit with those hairpins. And then the final one, to keep their damage and keep your car as clean as possible, work with the lap traffic and be careful when making those passes. This track is a very small track. We're seeing drivers, our fastest ones, running 50 seconds, almost breaking into the 49-second bracket just about with our fastest in practice. So drivers are going to have to be so careful of how quickly these cars of the leaders will catch up to lap traffic. Joe, this is going to be quite an interesting race, a little bull ring here in Japan. I'm looking forward to this race tonight.
Such a switch around from what we had at the first track in Spa. And if you joined us for that one and you're joining us again, well, welcome to the iRacing Esports Network. We love having you here watching, and we look forward to you joining us more. You can do that by hitting the big red button that says subscribe. From there, you could see all kinds of racing, including the World Championship, as well as many other types that they have on offer through various channels that broadcast here on IESN. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're watching qualifying take place right now, which is another one of the challenges around here, Taylor. As soon as the qualifying started, it hit me. It's not just the race that you got to worry about the tight confines, but here in quali, it's open. So you've got 30 cars out there trying to get a fast lap in at the same time.
Yes, indeed. It's pretty much bumper-to-bumper traffic out here on this track. Nowhere to really get a clean air or clean track for you. But for some amazing reason, Kenny Duvall with a 49.89, your fastest currently in qualifying. Very impressive. And I'm just amazed with how well he's able to manage through the traffic and still set the pole time currently at this moment.
Well, the good news for race fans, or at least those who are looking for just a good fight and aren't necessarily a fan of one driver over the other, is there's only 3 100ths between Duvall and Blasco, and that is much closer than what we saw in practice. So that bodes well for maybe there being at least some challenge for Kenny, because I'm looking through, and actually, do we have our winner? of last week here today. Yes, Curlin Andrew is out there, but he's not looking so hot at this track. He didn't qualify well at Spa. I wonder if we're going to see a repeat here.
Yeah, it's a possibility. Currently, he's running or starting in the P11th position right now with a 50.51. And as he's deciding to go off track at the moment. But it's just real amazing that he's starting this low. Maybe it's just a certain strategy he might have, but at this track so small and as tight confined as here, I would be preferred to be starting up towards the front. Of course, here's another fan favorite here, the PRL, our past champion in the GTE series on Tuesday nights, Jesper Jerlicka. He's out there currently right now running, starting in the 19th position, so quite low on the time charts right now as he comes to the line. He does not improve his lap time, so quite surprised to see him not running quite too well here, Joe.
Yep, Jerlicka seems to struggle a little bit with this car, and we will say it's very, very different from those GTE cars. As much downforce as those sports cars have, it is not nearly the same as what you get with these radicals. So the Texas driver seems to have a little bit of a challenge on his hand. Blasco still trying to get that last little bit of time to see if he can put himself on the pole. And, well, he needs to get on the front row because Overbay just went faster than him. And, in fact, Blasco went, well, he didn't go faster last time by. So Overbay has now split them almost exactly 15 one-thousandths behind Duval, 14 one-thousandths ahead of Blasco. I think this is proving to be a very tight race that we're going to see.
Yes, indeed. I mean, this is really tight in the time charts right now for qualifying. And just so we know, this is even going to affect us in the race. So it's going to be real interesting to see what Duval and Overbay and Blasco can do, these three cars. But don't count out some of the ones in the 4th and 5th position of Eric Luke and Jefferson Padavani. Those two might have some tricks up their sleeve, especially if the lap traffic befalls our top three currently.
Certainly will. Bradley Hawley, who did not have a good end to his race last week at Spa, out there once again. Number 184, mid-pack right now, sitting in 15th, almost exactly mid-pack, I believe, as I think we have exactly 30 drivers. His fastest right now at a 50.8. He's got a number of laps under his belt here. It's one good thing about it being so short is that qualifying gives you plenty of chances to get a good one in.
Yes, indeed. It's such a short track. You could probably run anywhere between 10 to 15 laps here in just this small qualifying session. So a lot of extra laps to help you improve yourself here on this track, even in the qualifying session.
So as Holly comes down the backstretch towards turn 12, I see Blasco's actually getting ready to finish another lap. Not going to go faster, though. He's still got a little bit of time to try and get a good one in as we're just over 2 minutes left to go. Should point out that Duval hasn't really put many laps in since he set his fastest lap. He put maybe 3 more tries out on the pavement, but he's only got 5 timed laps, and his fastest was his second lap. That is some confidence in the number 63. You see him right there sitting at the end of pit lane right now. He does not look phased, even though it is very, very close between himself and Overbay and Blasco.
Yeah, and then only a 10th back now. Eric Luke just set an excellent lap time with a 49.99, so it's going to get a little more tighter for this top 5 right now. If Padavani can maybe break that 49, we're looking at 5 drivers that have broken that 49-second bracket, so this might get a little bit interesting for Kenny Duval and Overbay.
Right on board with Eric Luke coming around that final corner. Let's see what this one holds. Not faster for him. We were talking about Andrew being our winner last time around. He qualified 9th at Spa, even though he won, which is very impressive for him to climb that high. He's actually qualified in 11th right now, which is pretty close to where he was. So I wonder if this is just his qualifying pace. Is right here hovering around the top 10. I think he's got a time for one more good lap, and if he hustles around, and that's, well, no, he's going to pull off and call it a day. So 11th is the best we'll see out of Curlin, it looks like. But fascinating stuff. I want to see if he's just simply a better racer than he is a qualifier.
That's the case with a lot of, even in the professional world, drivers may not have the best skill in qualifying, but yet when it comes to race time, they know when to put the pedal down and drive their car properly. Looking right now as we see Eric Luke still not able to get another good qualifying lap at this moment. Still was not able to break his fastest time. Still going to hold on to the 4th position by the looks of it though.
Riding on board with Padavani sitting in 5th at the moment. And checking to see if there's any other big players that are going to cross here. Now the checkered flag has come out. Blasco is going to abandon his. This is Padavani, so he's going to be the next fast one. He also has had enough. Mark Feil not going to complete his lap. Is anybody going to try and cross the line now that the checkered flag has come out? Now Huffstetler's coming around, but I think his last lap was after the checkered fell. It was awful close. He's currently sitting in 12th, and if he is going to be able to cross the line, he'll be the last one. He doesn't look like he's coming into the pit, so he's going to try and complete this lap. And as he crosses that 50.5, does not improve. So, in fact, I don't think that one counted at all for him. So let's go through our starting grid. Kenny Duval going to be on the pole, Michael Overbay. That was our same front row as last week, actually. He'll be starting 2nd. Alberto Blasco will be 3rd with Eric Luke starting P4. Jefferson Padavani will be P5. Then it's Eric Harmon starting 6th with row 4, starting with Paul Wildridge. Horatio Brown next to him in 8th. Mark Feil starts in 9th, and the top 10 is rounded out by Matthew Gunderson.
Starting in the 11th position will be Curlin Andrews, our last winner at Spa, followed by Charles Huffstetler in the 12th position. Enzo Jesus Masagila will start in the 12th position, or 13th position, followed by Owen McLaughlin in 14th. Christian Gritzko will start in the 15th position, followed by Bradley Holly in 16th. Christopher Richard will start in 17th position, followed by AJ Henderson. John LaBath will start in 19th, and rounding out your top 20 will be Jesper Drlicka.
Andrew Spicer starts 21st with Karsten Quinton 22nd, and it's Gary Schilling starting 23rd. After that, we've got David Herbert and P24. Phil Guillaumin starts 25th, and Ronald McManus will be 26th at the drop of the green. Daniel Barnett will start in 27th spot. Danny Duchesne did not get a time in. He'll be 28th. Tyler Gord 29th, and Luis Morga as well. 3 drivers did not get a lap time in, starting 30th. As the cars grid up out here, it's a little bit cloudy, but the clouds have been in and out, so we should see the sun out once again. It's only 78 degrees out on track today. Thankfully not too hot for the drivers around what is already going to be a tricky circuit. Mistakes could, though, come into play in trying to help drivers get a pass down into turn 1 here. You see at the end of this short straight at the front stretch, it's going to be one of the few opportunities to try to get a pass in. Clock ticks down now, and the engines start to rev. The lights are up. Green flag is out. Oh, and Duval does not get off the line for the 2nd race in a row, and the car behind him runs into the driver ahead. That was Padavani getting into the back of, I think it was Luke. No, it was Blasco, as now the drivers are all 3 wide, 2 wide, coming through the first hairpin. Some of them spinning out. Charles Huffstetler gets turned around. More cars running into each other as they try to make their way slowly through the mess to 3 and 4.
Yeah, a lot of drivers, Jesper Drlicka, AJ Henderson, Bradley Holly, all involved in that as they're coming out of the 2nd hairpin right now. A lot of damage. As we have more, Charles Huffstetler now gets off course. Oh, that's Kenny Duval, actually.
Bad start for him. Even worse than what he saw last week. We'll get back to that replay soon. It's a repeat for Overbay, finding himself leading the train at the end of the first lap. Eric Luke is going to follow him in 2nd. Blasco is in 3rd, with Harmon very quickly in tow, trying to see if he could get to the podium from 4th place.
Really surprising incidents here on the first lap, but this is something you expect here at Tsukuba, and it's just amazing that this many drivers still finished the first lap here after this.
So wow, very chaotic start here. A number of drivers did not heed the stewards who really warned them that you got to be careful at the start of this race with the cold tires and with the tight confines certainly has caused some damage to have to be taken care of in the pit lane. Right on board with third place, Blasco still being chased by Harmon. As they come up to turn 12, Harmon trying to set himself up for this long right-hander. Off the corner, though, not quite of a strong enough exit to give him an attack on Blasco down in turn 1 and 2.
No, but he's going to take a peek on the inside. As we look on to the Huffstetler incident, let's see if we can get a replay of that since things calm down just a hair. And I tell you what, I'm surprised just only this small amount of drivers got involved. It looked much worse at first.
Yeah, I think it looked like Huffstetler got a little bit hit from behind. That spun him off, and then cars were checking up. We're going to watch it once more. This is from on board. This will give us a good feel if he did get a bump. Oh, yeah. Oh, he got a good shove. And then everything from there was just the chain reaction.
Yeah, so it was unfortunate for a lot of those drivers, especially like Jesper Jerlicka, AJ Henderson, and also looks like Christian Gritzko as well, was taking it behind the wall and ended their day and not even able to complete the first lap. So very unfortunate for those drivers, and it looks like maybe that we see Huffstetler going to try and continue on even with that damage to the rear end.
Got a good pass a bit ago. Horatio Brown overtaken by Padavani in the final corner. Let's see if we can find the replay here. See Brown moving a little bit backwards as he's close to being overtaken again. Here we go. Just set him up perfectly. And then he did get the inside, so took the racing line, and then from there it was very difficult for Horatio to keep it together. Actually had to have the rest of the pass completed down into 1. Now since then, Horatio made a mistake into 10 and 11. The third hairpin spun the car around. He's all the way down to 14th. He's got it going once again. But this is not the best start that he could have asked for. Oh, and there's a car behind him. Sorry to jump our director out. Karsten Quint found the wall. It looks like he found it hard. A lot of damage on the car. Taylor, this car, if we'll see on the replay, it looks like it just snapped.
Yes, indeed, as he sees going into the final corner right here. Just completely losing. Might have got up into a little bit of the gravel right there. Washed up too hard and then into the barriers. So unfortunate night here for Karsten Quint. As we go on with Michael Overbay, our leader. No trouble for him at all, but he's got a little bit of pressure from Eric Luke, the Florida driver, about 6/10 back from him.
Yeah, Overbay's been pushing. He's been setting a few of the fastest laps out here. Luke not letting him get away with it, as you said. 7/10 separating them. It's the car behind that they're dropping. Blasco, who is falling backwards. He's already having to deal with lap traffic. These cars just 5 minutes into the race, catching the tail end of the field.
Yep, that lap traffic is definitely going to be coming into play now, especially after that lap 1 incident. A lot of cars still on pit road at the moment. Will possibly some of them come out? We'll have to wait and see as time goes on, but it's going to get a little interesting for our leaders right now as they're making their way around turn 12. We'll go back to P4. It's heating up now as Paul Wildridge is closing on to the back bumper of Eric Harmon, coming down the first straight into the first hairpin corner. See if he gets right up onto the back bumper coming off. He's got to be so careful not to get too far off corner exit and lose the car. There's a little bit of time now. He now makes the run towards the second hairpin corner.
Wildridge earlier was, Harmon earlier was trying to attack Blasco. Now it's gone in reverse. Harmon having to go defensive with the number 67 of Wildridge, stalking him from behind. It looks like Harmon's dealing with it well as he gets himself a tiny bit of breathing space. So let's move down to 16th, where we've got some close action in the mid-pack. This is Tyler Gore and Phil Gilman close together. In fact, just a little ways up the road from them, looks like Schilling and Duchesne in a nice little battle, too.
Yep, as we see Shane get a nice off on the track. Schilling does.
Yeah, exit at turn 11. Unfortunately, not playing well with the number 17 car. We're going to watch the replay here. Is this wheel spin or what happened here? No, just understeered.
Yeah, just understeer completely off the course into the grass. I don't think he makes any contact with the wall, so that saves his car just a little bit. He just loses a bunch of time to Danny Duchesne, and it has to now worry about Tyler Gore, who's on the back bumper. And now coming out of the final of the 3 hairpins. Actually, no, that's the first hairpin right there. My apologies.
Yep, down into the second hairpin. Gore pressuring Schilling, but not able to do anything with it quite yet. As they now work their way towards the final hairpin. He drops back. Schilling ducks a little bit early, trying to cover himself off, and exits that last hairpin a little bit safer this time than last time.
Mark File is all over the back bumper of Matthew Gunderson, and I think they're bringing in another player. That's going to be Enzo Jesus Masaguila as they're going into the second hairpin. These 3 are lined up nose to tail. As we see, Enzo gets a little bit loose out of there, has to check up and loses a bunch of time to Mark File, but Mark's really putting the pressure on Gunderson there, Joe.
Oh, and Masalia! He spins the car off into the barriers. There was just no runoff, and the cars are getting pretty fast at this point of the track, so it was lights out as soon as he overcorrected.
Oh, that was a hard hit.
Watch from on board. I think this should give the best perspective of how little time he has to try and catch this thing. Look at this. Oh, it looked like a little grass to the inside maybe that he caught there, Taylor.
Yeah, I saw his wheels go just below into the grass, and that's where he started to lose the car completely. You can't be doing that here with these cars. They're very sensitive, especially when it gets into those grass. And slick tires, this is not going to work too well. Unfortunately for Enzo, he is coming down pit road.
Backing up to 5th place, up at the top of the field. This is Wildridge and Padovani still fighting over that top 5 position around the final corner. Padovani, the car behind. Wildridge, the car in front that you see. And they're actually not too far back from Harman still. The fully black car, the black and red car that you see up ahead of them. Good exit by Wildridge to keep himself safe from Padovani, who had a little bit of a look down into the first hairpin. And they continue to work their way not only through these tight corners, but traffic, you can see that is McManus trying to let them by.
McManus got to be a little bit careful. He was going a little bit too slow in that corner right there, so if the drivers weren't paying attention, that would have been a major issue that could have happened between these two. I'm noticing with some of these drivers, especially with Padovani and with Wildridge, this battle right here, sometimes we see Wildridge try to just hug that inside line as best he can, try to make the short way around the track, while we see someone like Padovani who's kind of diamonding those hairpins, starting up a little bit high and then working his way to the bottom, hitting the apex, and then back up the track. Some of that helps out a little bit when it comes to setting up for the pass. As we see, Padovani looks to the inside now, sticks his nose through there. I think he might have had a shot, but I think Wildridge just had a better exit on that hairpin, but locks up the brakes though. This might give the position to Padovani. Side by side they go. Padovani has now taken the position, move him inside the top 5.
Went a little wide through 7 for extra, making it extra worse for Paul Wildridge. So not only has he lost his spot, he's lost quite a bit of time on Padovani. I think we'll see a lot of drivers. Oh, with Daniel Barnett coming in. I think this might be within the pit window, but this is unusual strategy. Most drivers tend to wait until late. I'm checking to see if he had any sort of incident. I'm not seeing anything recently from him. So this must be just Daniel deciding the 66 is going to take a little bit of an alternate strategy here. 22 seconds in his pit stall, though. That's a bit long, the pit stop for these cars. Looking at Mark File once again. He chases Gunderson, all while trying to hold off McLaughlin.
These cars, watching Owen had a little bit of a slide going through that corner before they're now making the run toward. Oh, as we see Gunderson get real loose. Nice save to the car. Was able to control the car and keep Mark File behind him coming out of the 3rd hairpin. That was a great save right there.
He can only get away with it so many times, though. These drivers taking that wide line, cutting down to the late apex through the final corner. onto the front stretch where they carry the speed and then have to woe them up for the very tight first hairpin. 3 in a line. It is still Gunderson leading File, leading McLaughlin. Oh, and Tyler Gore had a problem. Down in 16th right now. And this was all on his own. You can see he's still off track trying to get it going once again. The final hairpin takes another one. See the orange car coming up. Nobody around him. And then the 77. Oh, yeah, that rear just starts to break loose very early in the corner there, Taylor.
Yes, indeed. And unfortunate for him, that's going to cost him to come down pit road. A lot of damage to the rear as well as the nose of that car. I say his day is pretty much done if he decides to come back out.
I don't think he hit anything, though, in that incident, so that must have been from earlier on, unless just bouncing over the grass caused that. Quick mention, 7th place, Curlin Andrew. He won last race. Well, he's not doing as good with what we saw at Spa, but from 11th to 7th is not bad, and he's actually looking at 6th because that's Paul Wildridge directly in front of him. Remember, Paul had that mistake that allowed Padavani to get through. He's already dropped far enough back that the number 12 car is hunting him down, looking to the inside, down into the final corner. He's clearly hungry. Let's see what this highlighter yellow car can do.
Ooh, Jefferson Padavani's coming down pit road. This is our P6 top 5 driver right now. Ooh, this is quite early for these drivers to be coming down pit road.
Yeah, like I said, not typical. Usually it seems like cars want to wait until late. Do you think that's affected by the amount of traffic on such a short track? Does it maybe not matter as much trying to stay out?
It's possibly that, maybe since there's so much traffic around them, they may decide, okay, try to get away from it and move into somewhere where they can run their own race and their rhythm of the track. That's the only plausible reason I can think of what some of these drivers are doing with this early pit stop.
Well, Padavani's definitely seems to be scheduled because it was only about 11 seconds. He's back out in 11th place appropriately. Curlin Andrew still working on the back of Paul Wildridge, though. We take a glance at Padavani real quick just to see what he's doing. Had a little damage on the left there. Curlin Andrew now within half a second, less than half a second on Wildridge, but he can't stay close to him to attempt to pass down into the final hairpin. I feel like Curlin's the one that could really use one of these alternate pit strategies, coming in early to try and jump the number 67. Does he try this time? Nope, he's going to stay out.
Ooh, a little bit of a wiggle right there to the final turn right there of turn 12. He has to check up a little bit. That's going to lose all that time that he had to Paul Wildridge. As he gets right back onto the throttle, back down to the brakes. Not a lot of time to be on the throttle as you're now having to brake really hard through the first set of the hairpins. Now making the run down towards the second one. I tell you what, let's see a little bit of brake lock up there by Paul Wildridge. That will bring Curlin back into the fray a little bit. And this corner right here, this is the corner that they're just going through. It may look like a simple corner, but if you go onto those bumpers a little bit too much or on the curbing, you will lose the car very easily. And we've seen a couple of cars lose it, especially in practice. So drivers are going to have to be careful, even through just about the entire track with the curbing here.
And the track has changed a lot since the start of the race. Remember, it was, about 78 degrees. It's now 8 o'clock in the morning here in Japan, virtual standard time, and it is 89 degrees, close to 90 degrees out on track. That's a pretty significant swing that could be affecting how some of these cars are driving out there. Who's got it set up for what? Early in the race or late in the race? Still a half an hour left to go. Waiting on a number of drivers yet to pit, but the highest pitter for the moment is Padavani in 13th.
The battle for P3 heating up just a little bit. Blasco and Harmon have been now going back at it again. Let's break off just a little bit, but Harmon tries to get late into the brakes going through turn 12. They're now catching up to a lap traffic of Christopher Richards, currently running in the 22nd position.
And this could be what Harmon is looking for. knowing that the likes of Blasco could be held up. So far, though, Richards isn't really being caught by them terribly quickly, which doesn't necessarily bode well, since it could be harder to try and sneak through.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed with the lap traffic here is they're pretty evened out. Unless there's severe damage on that lap traffic car, these cars are pretty much sturdy enough to keep up pace to where it's a little bit more difficult to pass the drivers that are driving the cars, especially for the leaders as they make their way down the back straightaway towards turn 12. Blasco gets a little bit of a run, utilizing a little bit of small slipstream to try to close the gap. He's going to look to the inside, though, of Richards. But still, Richards is just a little bit tick fast enough to keep them behind him at this moment. As Harmon now looks to the inside right now, he puts his nose there, but sees as Blasco shuts the door on him through the first hairpin. Now for the run towards the second one. Let's see if Harmon can maybe close the gap even more now. Gets bit in the back bumper as they're closing a little bit closer to Richards.
Yeah, he's taking looks here and there. I have to imagine that Alberto might be getting a little bit frustrated that Richards hasn't pulled over yet to let him through, because the wake of these cars, we haven't talked about that yet. It's almost the same problem that you see in Formula One and IndyCar, trying to get by a car ahead. Getting close is tough enough in itself.
Yes, indeed. That aerodynamics affects the cars drastically with these cars. With that wake, it just makes the car feel unstable and very difficult to pass. That's why a lot of these cars love clean air in front of them. That dirty air will definitely mess up the handling of your car, and of course, messing up the handling will also cause future incidents that could affect your car for the worst.
Well, he let them by now and didn't give the position over to Harmon, but certainly got very close coming into the final corner. You're not missing anything up at the front. Overbay's holding Luke at arm's length at about a second. And then you've got a whole 8 seconds between them and Blasco and Harmon. A little bit farther back in 11th, we were watching Padovani, and actually wasn't Padovani... Oh, wait, no, Padovani pitted. That's right, excuse me.
Yep, he's on his pit still.
Yeah, so he's gained one position or two, I think, since we last looked at him. He was in 13th. He's now up to 11th, past Duchesne. Next on his list is Horatio Brown, but Brown's a long ways up at about 15 seconds.
Yeah, a long ways. Oh, we have a little bit as they're now with Blasco, a little bit of an incident between him and David Herbert. That brings Harmon right back to the back bumper. This is the battle for third position between the 85 and the 617 car. They're back at it again. Lap traffic a little bit good for Harmon, but Blasco is not too happy with some of these cars. They would get now a little bit of a gap on the back straightaway now, though. But still, Harmon noticing that Blasco is having a little bit difficulty with the lap traffic, so he's probably waiting for that right opportunity to utilize lap traffic as a pit to make the pass to move into the podium position.
Certainly seems to be the difference between these two and the top two, as that gap continues to grow, and Gary Schilling trying to get out of the way of Blasco, finally able to do so. All this fighting has meant that the likes of Curlin Andrew, now up to 5th, is creeping forward closer and closer.
Curlin Andrews working his way. He's got now Gary Schillings in front of him, as we see Ronald McManus now in the grass as well, but give it a few more laps. I say Curlin Andrews could probably be on the back bumper of our Eric Harmon, as well as Blasco, working his way into the podium.
Well, Alberto has been doing a good job of holding off the New York driver for this far. He's only got to do so for 24 more minutes. But we're still waiting on a number of cars to come in for their stops. This is looking a lot more normal for much of the field, going as long as they can. Around the second hairpin, still Harmon not able to do anything with Alberto Blasco.
Gotta give Eric the thumbs up for effort, though. He is really putting a lot of pressure, though, on Blasco as he locks up the brake just a little bit in the third hairpin. Down the back straightaway they go. A lot about a 3 to 4 car lengths gap now has built up between him and Blasco. down the back straightaway through turn 12, this long right-hand sweeping corner. We did see a couple of incidents where drivers washed up a little bit too far and hit the gravel trap a little bit, so they have to be really careful going through there. Curlin, though, is closing in a little bit. He was able to get by Gary Schillings and is just only one car separating him and Harmon. That's Cripps and Roberts.
Oh, and Paul Wildridge decides to pit now. So he hits his stall. The Hoosier taking his fuel and then should be on his way. Been keeping an eye on Overbay, and he's actually extended the gap over Luke recently. I suspect this is mostly due to traffic because it happened seemingly pretty suddenly. And number 16, almost 2.5 seconds back from Michael.
Yeah, Michael has been very well going through lap traffic, no problem at all. I'm looking at his car right now. Not a scratch on the car, no dirt, no anything. He has really kept that car nice and clean, that number 68 Overbay design to Radical.
Padovani, when he came, Wildridge, when he came back out, is behind Padovani. It's about 3 seconds between 10th and 11th, which obviously promotes Jefferson now. Who was that off track back there? Is that Guillaumin? No, it was Guillaumin. Phil Guillaumin's 15th place. Another one of these drivers that discovered the difficulty of getting on the power out of a slow corner in these cars here, Taylor.
Yes, indeed. We see right there as he's coming out of the final hairpin. Just gets it a little tail happy, not making any contact with the barrier to the inside. Just cuts through the grass a little bit, back out on track, no problem at all for the Mid-South Club driver.
So we come back live, seen that happen a few times out here today. Andrew Spicer is now in, and I think this is his first stop of the day.
Andrew's been having a decent run, running inside the top 15. He did have one off a little bit early on a couple of laps ago, but was able to keep the car going, as Eric Luke now is also coming down pit road. This is our second place driver, car number 16. This will now give a chance maybe for our third place driver of Blasco to maybe close the gap in, unless he decides to come down. No, he is going to stay out along with Harmon and Curlin Andrews. So this will drop our second place driver of Eric Luke's multiple positions back.
Now down to the final third of the race. Will this cause the dominoes to fall? Sixth place in a bit of a battle, which is now becoming a battle for fifth place. It is Mark File and Owen McLaughlin duking it out here.
Yeah, those two have been going at it pretty much all night long right now. Through the second hairpin they go. McLaughlin looks on, trying to find a way to just get close to the back bumper of Mark File, but Mark's been doing a real good job keeping Owen McLaughlin right behind him as they're making the run down towards the third hairpin corner. You see Owen take that higher line, then gets to the apex, and then washes right back up towards the curbing. Gets a nice run out of there, but still has a couple of car lengths behind Mark File, the sixth place driver.
And here's what's interesting. I was keeping an eye on Overbay. He did not pit this time by, so he is not responding to Luke coming in early, which could be a strategical error because Eric Luke is back out. Now, actually, I say that. Luke was in for 17 seconds. We've seen drivers in as short as 10-second long pit stops. So I wonder if Luke had some damage he had to get repaired. That it should not have been that long.
I did notice a little bit of rear end damage briefly on the back of Luke. We'll go on board and see it, Luke, right now.
Watch from on board. Yeah, Horatio is just behind him.
Just a little bit of a crinkle on the back rear end of the car. That shouldn't affect it too much compared to something like a GTE car, but still, maybe he felt something wrong in the back end of the car, decided to come down pit road to get it fixed to see if it'll help stabilize the car.
Well, hopefully it works, because it certainly cost him a chunk of time around here. 7 seconds at this track means a lot in terms of lap length. We're still waiting on a number of drivers to come in, two of which is Eric Harmon sitting in third, and Curlin Andrew still in fourth.
Yeah, he has been really well. Pretty much, where did he come from? Started in 11th position, now worked his way up to 4th, and not done yet. He's now going to try to get to the back bumper of Harmon, coming out of the final turn of turn 12 down the front straightaway. Not able to close the gap now, but might make a chance to look to the inside as they go through the first hairpin. As we see Harmon get a little bit loose, going over that curbing a little bit too much. Now through the little run down towards the second hairpin. Curlin's going to try to take a peek. Not close enough, though. As they go nose to tail through the second hairpin, he looks to the outside a little bit. Now Harmon slides back into the racing line to set up for the next corner.
Pounding him, pressurizing him for quite a while. Cars up in front are, well, they were lapped cars, but this is Blasco that they're starting to gain on. That was a lapped car, the yellow machine, Duchesne letting them through, but when did they get this close to Alberto Blasco? There's less than a second now between the 617 and the 85.
Yeah, Blasco had caught that lap traffic and it was a little difficult as we see Curlin Andrews try to take a dive bomb move. That's a little bit risky right there, especially going through the first hairpin right there. I'm surprised they didn't make contact. That was good heads-up driving.
Let's take a look at that one more time. Can we go on board Andrew himself, actually? See how close he got to making contact. He thought he had something. That is confidence from Harmon to know that that car was not going to be there when he turned in.
Oh, that's some bravery right there. I mean, that was impressive what Harmon was able to do. As they're now closing on some lap traffic, you see Harmon try to get right to the back bumper of that lap car as he's now coming down pit road.
I was going to say, I don't think he's trying to get to the back bumper. I think he's trying to pit in. And indeed, there he goes. Now, he was not really in a battle with Eric Luke. Luke is our highest pitter right now. Harmon is just hitting his stall as Luke is coming down into turn 12.
Eric Luke trying to catch up. His teammate Mark Fio just got lapped by Michael Overbay, so quite interesting strategy we see with our leader right now. Still has not decided to come down pit road at all.
And let's see, actually, what kind of laps has Luke been doing in comparison to Overbay since his pit stop? 51, 3, 59, 51 flat, 51 6. So Overbay has been doing 51 flat, 51 2, 51 2, 51 4. I actually, does this mean Luke has actually been slightly faster than Overbay?
Just by a tick at least, by the looks of it, at least on a longer run. But on that short run gap, especially with new tires, I think Overbay has a little bit slightly advantage speed, but Overbay also has the opportunity to get through this lap traffic a lot better than Luke has.
Crosses the line. This time it's a 51-4 for Eric Luke. And Overbay is responding. Overbay is now coming in for his pit stop.
That seems about right. 15 minutes left to go. That seems to be the average pit window that we averagely see here with the Radicals. So it's quite to see our leader come down. He's hopefully going to have a quick stop. As we see if Alberto Blasco will also come down and try to respond. Or will he stay out? I see currently right now. Yep, he is still staying out.
Overbay's out. Overbay is out on track. Eric Luke isn't even to the final corner. I'd say Overbay is plenty safe. And oh, you know what it was, is Eric Luke had those extra 7 seconds we were talking about. We had forgotten about, and that's why he is so far back. So now the question might be, is Eric Luke, can he even retain second place when these pit stops are done? He came out ahead of Padovani. We're waiting on Blasco, Andrew, McLaughlin. Yes, so those three to come in and stop.
Blasco and Andrews decided not to come in at this moment at all. They're staying out for another lap. Overbay's still out there on track. McLaughlin's also staying out. He's going to hold on to the 4th position. So I think they're not ready to come down yet. Maybe we could see them come down with maybe 10 minutes left to go, if not this time by.
Oh, Horatio Brown is coming in from 6th. So he trundles his way around very slowly, though. Oh, did Horatio run out of fuel? Because the cones are not until you come around that final corner. Doesn't sound like he's sputtering, but that he shouldn't have been going that slow around that last turn. All right, so what about Blasco doesn't come in. Andrew does not come in. Owen McLaughlin does come in from 4th place.
Merlin Andrews really putting a lot of pressure to the back bumper of Blasco as they're making their way through the second hairpin again. A little bit of damage on the back bumper of Blasco, but Carolyn Andrews focused, wanting to get that second win here. To that small little kink they go. As they're making the run down towards the third hairpin corner. Carolyn Andrews might try to be brave again. Try to look to the inside. Nope, still follows suit with Blasco coming out of the final hairpin for the run down towards turn 12. Let's see if they come down pit road this time. As we see a car behind them go loose off of the third hairpin. Nope, decides to stay out.
Overbay currently leads Luke by 14 seconds. That is a pretty big gap. So he's looking solid for the win. It's just, how is the rest of the podium going to play out? Blasco and Andrew still have not stopped. Duchesne is still out there. Gary Schilling is also continuing. And then Andrew, well, no, Andrew Spicer sitting in his stall right now. So we've got 4 drivers yet to stop with about 11 seconds left, or excuse me, 11 minutes left on the clock. A bit of a fake, it almost looked like, from Andrew as he ducked to the inside, but then does not come and pit.
Might be trying to play a little bit of a head game with Blasco, letting him know, like thinking, oh, I'm going to pit this time. I've seen a lot of drivers in professional and sim racing try to do a fake pit or fake where their pit entry, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This time it didn't. They come out of the first hairpin, making the run towards the second. I mean, I'm just impressed with Curlin trying to put this much pressure on the back end of Blasco with still 11 minutes to go. It's quite impressive right now.
We talked about 2 stories a lot in this race, the lead up, and that would be the attrition and the traffic. Well, how are they looking right now? The traffic currently has only 9 cars on the lead lap. But the good news for these drivers is that I believe we only have roughly 22, 23 drivers out there still running. So about 2/3 of the field is able to continue limiting how many cars you run into out on track as we continue to watch the number 12 of Curlin Andrew do everything he can to try and take the temporary lead away from Blasco, but just hasn't been able to do anything.
He tried that time. He got right up to the back bumper, but both drivers got loose to the second hairpin as we see Blasco pulling away by about 3 or 4 car lengths, making the run towards the third and final hairpin. Carolyn Andrews taking a little bit of a higher line right now, see if he can dive to the inside. Nope, going to still follow suit with Blasco still holding on to the lead. This is going to see if they're going to come down pit road or not. Coming close to pit entry. Nope, decide to stay out again. They may come down maybe with less than 10 minutes to go before this is all said and done there, Joe.
So, on the one hand, it's a very short lap, Taylor. So, I guess they can, it's a lot easier to tell exactly how many you can go on the fuel. But on the other hand, this is a very stop-start track. 3 hairpins in a mile and a half, to me, would say it would be fuel thirsty. But I'm impressed with how long on the clock they've been able to go so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite impressive. They've gone pretty much nearly almost 3/4 of this race just about without having to make a pit stop compared to our leaders such as Overbay and Luke, who pitted several minutes ago, especially like Eric Luke, who pitted almost with 15, 20 minutes left to go in the race. So for Curlin and Blasco to be able to have this much fuel-saving conservation in their storage right now is something impressive. As you see Andrews get a little bit loose coming out of turn 12 right now. He's lost a little bit of time to Blasco, but he's going to try to get right to the back bumper again through the first hairpin. Goes up a little bit high as the battle for P10 is starting to heat up a little bit. So let's go there.
That's Gunderson and Brown. In fact, Brown got a great run off that final corner. He's in the green, white, and black car. Gunderson and the orange machine we ride on board with now, but he gets a much better exit out of 1 and 2. So as they come to the second hairpin, they don't necessarily have to worry about the cars behind them because that is all lapped traffic. Next car back is a whole 15 seconds, Danny Duchesne. So Horatio really is able to go on the attack if he wants to. Oh, and Blasco pits from the lead, allowing Curlin Andrew to go one more lap around free of the wake of the car ahead.
Michael Overbay now comes into second position now, so probably in the next lap or two we will see Michael Overbay back in the lead as we see a car go off in front of our leader of Curlin Andrews, but able to make quick short work of those other lap traffic cars.
And Luke was able to get out ahead of Blasco. In fact, so was Padavani. Blasco returns in 5th position. So Eric Luke looks like that second place might actually be relatively safe for now. Curlin Andrew needs to be checked for an extra fuel cell in that car at this point. He goes another lap with only 7 minutes left to go.
He's going to have to take a pit stop, otherwise that would be technically breaking one of the rules here, where you have to have one required pit stop in this series. He's going to have to, and unfortunately, it might be too little too late when it comes to making that final stop, unless he's somehow, some way, able to pull a major gap between now and when he decides to come down pit road.
I wouldn't think he'd be able to save fuel and pull a gap. He'd be one incredible driver if that's the case. I think he's just trying to run it as long as he can. Is he going to go around again? Yes, he is. Now, I'm pretty certain they can't go the full race distance. I don't think that's possible with how they've limited the fuel cells. I'm just amazed at how he's been able to extend his run, though, as we look at Gunderson and Brown still going at it. Horatio going way wide into the early part of the final corner, but manages to duck it down to the apex in the second half and keep Gunderson within threat. That's Phil Guillaume, a lapped car just ahead of him, as well as David Herbert, also a lapped car. This could be exactly what the doctor ordered for Horatio, but right now holding both of them up as they hit the second chicane. It's a bit of a traffic jam here.
It is backed up completely. This brings in some more lap traffic right behind Horatio. That's Christopher Richard and Kenny Duval. Unfortunate for Kenny, what happened to him early on in the race is just trying to regain. As we see, looked like Horatio Brown gave a little bit of a bumper tap right there to Gunderson coming out of the third hairpin corner.
It looks like they both are able to get away with it. Yeah, poor Kenny down in 18th, just basically doing damage limitation to get as many points as he can. Right on board with Brown. Looking at the back of Gunderson. Sight he's probably a little bit sick of at this point. Now, it's not just Andrew who has yet to pit. Duchesne and Schilling have also not come in so far.
Impressive run. I mean, this is a teammate to Curlin Andrews, so he's probably trying to get as many points for the team championship as well. Currently running in the 12th position, the Canadian team driver currently doing a really good job holding on to that 12th position.
This, I thought for sure they'd limited it enough that the cars can't go to the end, but now I'm starting to question myself. This is our leader. About halfway through the lap here. 52nd lap, so he's still got about 4 laps to go.
It's about a 5-second gap between him and Overbay, and closing now under 5 seconds with a 4.9. So given some time, we may see Overbay. If Curlin does not pitch, Michael Overbay could close in.
And there he is.
There he goes. He waves
in.
the white flag. He surrenders.
Only so much fuel in the car. So we know that Overbay is going to get him. Luke most likely going to get him. It was Blasco that he was racing against, and Alberto's coming around the final hairpin right now. Andrew is in his stall. He was stuck behind Alberto for many laps. So did he have the pace with all these laps that he ran on his own to try and jump him? He's now coming out of his stall. Blasco coming out of the final corner. Andrew gets past the cones, and Blasco just gets by in time.
This is going to be a race to watch right here, the battle for this position. Blasco's got a little bit of fresh tires, hot tires in the car right now. Curlin Andrews, though, going to try to not give up just yet. He's got to get by the lap traffic, though, of John Labath, currently in 14th in the 911 Radical. But right in front of him is Alberto Blasco to make the run down to the final hairpin corner. And Joe, it's only under 3 minutes to go, so not a lot of time for Curlin Andrews to get to the back bumper of Blasco.
Absolutely. Here's an interesting note for you, though. Duchesne and Schilling still have not stopped. So they're still out there with 2 minutes left on the clock. Duchesne is in 12th. Schilling is in 13th. Is it actually in the rules that they are required to take a stop, or is it just limited by the fuel?
I think
I'm
most
curious.
of the time it's due to the fact of limitations, but if they don't stop, I will be quite impressed. And I'm wondering if some of these drivers will actually be scratching their heads of how in the world a driver such as Duchesne and Schilling were able to make it. The battle for P2 is heating up a little bit as the Eric Luke and Padavani is closing in less than half a second.
But these two were close before the pit stops, and then Padavani pitted the earliest of just about anyone that we've seen. What's he going to the inside here? Ducking out of the toe. I imagine, based on what we've seen from other cars, he can't be short on fuel unless he really short-fueled it. But Padavani looks about the same time as many of the other drivers out there today. A minute and a half left to go, so he doesn't have very long to try and stretch the fuel out if it is close for him. Whatever the case, he's pressurizing the number 16 of Eric Luke for that second spot. And looking at our last podium at Spa, I see the names Andrew, Duval, and Stevens, and I see none of those three names currently in the top three here at Tsukuba. This bodes well for the championship, meaning it is going to be a mixed-up points after this.
Yes, indeed. That's something that we like to see, is a mixed bag of drivers coming in for the championship. These drivers definitely had the right car set up for here. Don't get me wrong, Curlin Andrews, Blasco definitely had cars that definitely wanted to take it to Overbay, but fuel strategy and just certain things could not play into their hands. But still, Curlin Andrews, the current points leader after the last round of Spa, having a good run still here, making up for that not very good, but decent qualifying run.
Watching the battle between second and third, but Overbay is getting the white flag right now as he comes around the final corner. It's been 45 minutes and a lot of laps around here. This is going to be 53 for him. So we now switch back to the battle between Luke and Padavani. They get by a little bit of lap traffic in the form of Daniel Barnett, who lets them by easily. Look off the back of Luke under the rear wing at Padavani.
And then right behind them, Curlin Andrews still putting a lot of pressure to the back bumper of Blasco. They're now coming out of the final turn as well, about 2 seconds, as Michael Overbay is coming to the line.
Just one more corner to go for the number 68. Probably kicking himself for throwing away some opportunities back at Spa. This time he took advantage of other people's mistakes, other people's ill fortune. The win in round two going to go to Michael Overbay here in Japan. A hefty gap back to second place, 21 seconds down to Eric Luke in second, who has held off Padavani as he comes around the final corner. Eric Luke, a nice run from fourth to second. Same thing for Padavani from fifth to third.
Blasco was able to hold off Curlin Andrews for the fourth position. Still a real good effort by Curlin Andrews. Started in 11th, comes home in the top 5.
rest of the drivers swinging around that final corner. Owen McLaughlin going to get himself a top 10 after starting 14th. And then he has a big old gap back to the next car, which is actually our first car lap down, which is Horatio Brown, which means all the drivers should have finished by now. So let's take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing Channel and the iRacing Esports Network. We'll come back after this with the unofficial...
In this move, I was trying to run away from the traffic and trying to fix a little bit my car. I had 40 seconds of optionals. I could make 10 seconds on this pit stop. But yes, the car was good. It really didn't hurt so much. But that was a strategical pit stop.
Yes, indeed. And what are you most looking forward to this season as we continue on with about 6 rounds left in the season?
Yeah, I'm pretty optimistic. I'm hoping that we can do another good results. I have a guy that is a master of setup, that is Michael Overbay. By the way, congratulations for him and for Eric. But I think this will be very intense. It's a very nice car, very nice guys. PRL League is very nice too. And I think this will be very interesting, this next races.
We look forward to watching you here, Jefferson. Congratulations again on your 3rd place finish.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Congrats.
That was Pat Avani, and really great job. And Joe's caught up with our 2nd place driver, Eric Luke.
Yep, Eric was one of those drivers in a very, very close fight with Pat Avani and waited a little while before taking his stop, and it turned out for the better. But Eric, it seemed like Jefferson was making you sweat.
Oh, he absolutely was. He was pushing me towards the end. The lap traffic started really making me nervous. And then we had the little incident towards the end, which I thought I was pretty much giving up 2nd place at that point in time, but I managed to fight it out.
The race obviously took place pretty early in the morning here in Japan's time, going from about 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. That meant the temperature swung from a little under 80 degrees to, at the end, about 95 degrees. Did that affect the handling at all? Did you notice it? And were you planning on that?
It did affect the handling of the car. I hadn't necessarily planned for it. It's something, unfortunately, I didn't think of going into it. I was able to adapt a little bit. You had to just take the braking points just a little bit earlier, try to start the turn in just a tad bit earlier to get the car to turn. But yeah, the lap times and the tire wear, the times were starting to go down towards the end.
Never fun to have to get slower as you go, but still, you managed to get a podium. It's a completely fresh podium compared to last round. Do you think you can be a repeat podium finisher next week?
We have Road Atlanta next week. I really love the course. It's a fast, fun-flowing course. I'm hoping I can hang with the guys. Today's race definitely didn't turn out how I expected. I didn't expect to be on the podium, but I will absolutely take it.
All right. Well, we'll hope you do well when we go to Atlanta then. Congratulations on 2nd, and we'll talk to you later.
I appreciate it, and I just want to give a shout-out. Thanks again to HFD1 Motorsports and Fraley's Auto Body. You gentlemen have a good evening.
That was Eric Luke, 2nd place. And one last one that we're going to talk to, 5th place finisher Curlin Andrew, who certainly seems to be a much better racer than he is a qualifier.
Yes, indeed. Curlin, really good effort here tonight. Started in the 11th position, came home with a top 5. Tell us, how were you able to just save the car? I mean, we were just wondering. You went on for so long. We were wondering when you were coming down pit road, but of course the car was able to go pretty much the full 45 minutes. Some cars did not even pit.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, this is a very tricky track circuit. I did the fuel calculations before we started, and it said I needed about 37 liters. So I filled up for the first stint. I did stop towards the end with about 3 or 4 minutes to go. But I know this track, the nature of it, patience and consistency is the key here. So I try to keep it tidy throughout the race. You are absolutely right. 1 lap qualifying pace is not my strength. I have to work on that. If I was able to qualify higher, perhaps I would have been able to compete with the front runners, but we'll see what next week brings.
And speaking of next week at Road Atlanta, how do you feel to be prepared for that track? That track is a lot bigger, a little bit more difficulty here. So what are you most looking forward to or expecting when we go there?
I particularly like that track because it's quite technical. It's bumpy, a lot of elevation changes, and I think it rewards precision and also patience. And one of my strengths is racecraft, so I'm hoping to rebound when I go to that track next week.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing you there at Road Atlanta. Again, congratulations on your drive to the top 5, and we'll see you next week, Curlin.
Thank you, sir.
That was our 5th place finisher, Curlin Andrew, in the number 12 car, but it's going to close things up for us today. Another big thank you goes out to HFD1 Motorsports for sponsoring this season. And as well, we want to thank the iRacing Esports Network for bringing us on here for coverage. The first season we've covered here, the Thursday series on GSRC for PRL. And of course, thank you to Precision Racing League themselves for bringing us on for this coverage. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. You can see them listed here on the screen. And additional thanks go to Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Taylor, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook, the Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Cram. The next race here on the iRacing Esports Network is going to be Friday, tomorrow, a little bit early in the morning. That's because it's the West End Mazda Australian supercars that are racing at Detroit. It'll be January 11th at 5:45 a.m. Eastern. For this series, though, you can join us next week at Road Atlanta. That'll be Thursday, January 17th at 9 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race far. See you on the track.